Hello everyone, welcome to Inconvenient Truths. I'm your host, Jennifer Zeng. Today I will continue to talk about the most important topic, how the CCP has been working very consistently to take over the US by cultivating its own agents in the US. I will also present you some new facts. Before we go on, please make sure you subscribe to my channel and like my video first. The story I broke several days ago has been picked up by several other media outlets. So you do get unique content from me, right? And the good news is more people are now sharing information with me as they think I'm the one to trust and to turn on and to turn to. That is why I often get exclusive information. Now, let's move to our topic today. In our last show, I talked about the CCP's top advisor's detailed plan about how to take down the US. A most important strategy is to control the election results. Well, right after that show, a source approached me with some inside information he recently learned, which offered us a perfect example of how the CCP's plan is in action in the US. Well, the source told me that the CCP is adopting the seizing the power while parliament or color revolution strategy in the US while cultivating its own agents, and is supporting Andrew Yang, who is running for mayor of New York City. Let's show a picture of him. You may or may not know him. He once ran for the US president in 2020 and promised that he would give every American adult $1,000 per month, but he dropped out of that race in February. Now he's running for mayor of New York City. My source told me although Andrew Yang is from Taiwan, not Communist China, he is supported by the CCP-backed Federation of Asian Associations, American Chinese Commerce Association, and Asian American Community Empowerment, etc. Let's show a picture of the Asian American Community Empowerment. Do you see the CCP flag on the wall of a group photo of this organization? Let's see another two pictures. These are the screenshots of a report from CCP's mouthpiece Xinhua about Asian American Community Empowerment opening a new office in Flushing, New York last October. If a small local community group, If you are a local community group, you open a new office and the English version of Xinhua sends reports to cover your event, you must be somebody for the CCP, right? My source told me the chairman of this Asian American Community Empowerment is Zeng. Let's show a picture of him. So this is a screenshot from the American Chinese Commerce Association. Zeng is also the president of this organization. The photo on the right is him. So he actually is the president of quite a few similar organizations. My source told me Zeng listens directly to the CCP's Consulate General in New York. Currently, Andrew Yang and Zeng are working together with the Stop Asian Hate campaign. Let's watch a very short clip of Andrew Yang's speech at the Stop Asian Hate rally in New York on March 21st.
Hello, New York City! How beautiful are we? This truly is the most incredible assemblage of beautiful Asian and black and brown and white human beings I have seen in quite some time.
Well, that only gave you an idea of him giving a speech in that rally. He spoke for about 80 minutes. Now let's see a picture from this rally in which Andrew Yang made the speech. Did you see the English words in the sign? done with US imperialism. The other Chinese words say marching on, marching on. We are the warriors' duty is huge. We the women's hate and grievance are deep. These words are actually taken from the lyrics of a famous propaganda drama during China's Cultural Revolution to glorify how the CCP's female soldiers participate in the CCP's revolution to overturn the previous legitimate Chinese government. So, don't you think there is something wrong with having this kind of message, this done with US imperialism message, as well as how to overturn the legitimate government at a rally in the US? Now let's see another. This is a message in Chinese language circulated among American Chinese. The sentences in the red circle say, "We received information and notice from the Consulate General, of course Chinese Consulate General in San Francisco, asking us to participate in the Stop Asian Hate rally in San Francisco at 11 o'clock on March 27th. That's today, right? Now let's see a report about the Stop Asian Hate rally by ChinaNews.com. ChinaNews.com is also the CCP's official media outlet. This report is actually calling for everyone to come out and join the Stop Asian Hate March in New York on April the 4th. Please note that John Chen's name was mentioned in this report as one of the key organizers of the march, and it was him who gave out details of the march on April 4th, where to gather, when to gather, and where to go, etc. From what I understand about how the CCP's mouthpieces are operated, I know that if you are not CCP's own people, they definitely won't promote you or allow you to speak at their platforms or use their media to report about your events positively. Everything is propaganda for the CCP. Now let me show you some further evidence. This is a report at the website of American Chinese Commerce Association showing John Chen attending a reception at the Chinese embassy to celebrate the 27th anniversary of the founding of the CCP's Army, People's Liberation Army. This is an archived story featured John Chen by the CCP's most important mouthpiece, People's Daily, in 2001. John Chen was portrayed as a passionate patriot in this report. But when the CCP says you are a patriot, it means you love China, not the CCP. So don't misunderstand the word here. If you click on the original link of that People's Daily story, yeah, that's what you find. The report was actually removed. Why? Now let's see a Xinhua report in 2019. This report is about Xi Jinping's speech about Taiwan. In this report, John Chen, by the way, his Chinese name is Chen Shanzhuang, he was quoted as saying that he cannot agree more with Xi Jinping's speech about Taiwan and that the Taiwan question is China's internal affair and allows no external interference. Again, if you are not the CCP's own people, you won't appear in Xinhua's reporting showing your support of Xi Jinping. Xinhua will never ever come to interview me or ask my opinion about Xi Jinping's speech, right? Because I'm not the CCP's people. So that's the point. Now, let me show you some other evidence. This is a Facebook post by Zeng. She is a Chinese dissident living in the US. This Facebook post was written on September the 7th, 2019, after he learned the news that Andrew Yang would run for president. She said in this report that as early as about 10 years ago, it became 12 years ago now, When she lived in Beijing, she was approached by a famous lawyer in Beijing about a business opportunity in the US. The plan was to establish a school system, a school chain in the US to train and bring up Chinese children to become outstanding political activists who are qualified to run for various US elections, including running for the president of the US. After learning this plan, she consulted her neighbor who was very familiar with Chinese affairs. This neighbor advised her against getting involved in such a plan, saying that on the surface it was a business plan, but there was some ulterior agenda hidden inside it. So she dropped this affair and didn't think much about it. However, 10 years later, in 2019, when she learned the news that Andrew Yang was going to run for the president, she suddenly remembered the plan she learned 10 years ago and felt very uneasy. She said for Taiwanese Chinese people, if their surname is Yang, they usually spell it as Y-O-U-N-G. But for people from mainland China, they spell it as Y-A-N-G. So she was not sure whether Andrew Yang is really from Taiwan or whether his family actually originated from mainland China. That's why she felt uncertain and uneasy. She said although traditional invasion usually involves weapons and wars, a new form of invasion without weapons was happening in the US, and the invasion had actually quietly started at least 10 years ago. So she concluded the US is under a cold invasion. This reality can no longer be ignored. Actually, back in 2012, when I was working as a reporter for the Chinese division of NTD-TV or New Tang Dynasty Television, I covered a case of CCP taking away land from farmers in Fujian province and gave the land to the former president of Fujian Association in New York as a means to control overseas Chinese association to have them work for the CCP. Let's watch the report now. It's in Chinese language, but has English subtitles, so make sure you read the subtitles to understand it.
近日，来自福建连江县管头镇塘头乡的农民向本台投诉，包括纽约福建公所前主席郑时敏在内的开发商与当地官员勾结，强征村民200多亩农田进行房地产开发，导致村民无地可种，生活没有着落。纽约侨领指出，这一事件是中共用利益关系操纵海外侨社的典型例证。
来自福建塘头乡的村民带着厚厚的文件到本台投诉，家乡200多亩农田被强征。官方文件显示，强征土地的开发商包括纽约福建公所前任主席郑时敏的华兴房地产公司，以及股东之一为纽约珠城酒楼的云南三星公司等。村民表示，土地收购价格非常不合理，比市场价甚至低几10倍，而且就连象征性的收购金也没有及时付给村民。
93年收回田地一亩卖给那个港务局，一亩都11万，93年都卖11万，为什么03年变2万3？
村民说，2003年征地时用途是建高速公路、旅游项目等，但实际上都被用作商业房地产开发。
国家买一亩田，我1万块钱给你买。如果我卖的那个香烟的，我一亩田可以卖了50万。现在管头啊，一亩田可以280万。国家那个拍卖的时候。
村民还说，自土地被强征之后，多年来他们一直投告无门，近期到北京上访也没有下文，反而受到多种威胁，给村民生活造成极大困难。
你钱都赚了，你补偿一点给我们农民嘛，有一点饭吃也好。我们农民人心里没有钱，我们的好难过啊！我们人有的人很苦啊，把田还给我们农民，我们主要农民有田啊，没有田我们生存不下去。
村民还表示，有很多被强征的土地并没有得到开发，而是多年闲置荒废。按国家政策，闲置的土地应该归还给农民。记者曾多次联络郑时敏证实此消息，但每次只听到电话留言，郑时敏也没有回复记者的电话。
My name is Jimmy Chang， 希望您留下电话，我尽快的和您联络。
原中华海外联谊会理事陆东表示，中共将土地给海外侨领，目的是操控侨社，进行海外渗透。
有很多福州的福建同乡会、福建公所、福建社区侨团的头目也好，所谓领导人也好，他们很多都拿了地皮啊，拿了好处的。这是一个中共对影响拿经济利益交换，引诱美国的一些侨社的人为中共的战略利益进行摇旗呐喊。
陆东表示，中共统战人员也曾试图对他进行拉拢。
中共中央统战部3局的处长，有位处长也跟我说陆东啊，你做什么生意啊？我们帮你的忙。
也有海外侨领表示，判断一个社团的性质不是看它的名称，而是看它的行为。从福建公所和其他一些福建侨团近年来的所作所为，特别是配合中共打压法轮功的行为来看，他们代表的不是福建同乡的利益，而是中共的利益。从这一点上看，他们已经违反了美国的外国人代理法。
中共政府现在向这个侨团、向社区大规模的渗透什么的，仇视美国的这种观点，有人就和中国搞在一起，在街头就搞这种各种各样的这种对法轮功的迫害。我在这里告诉大家，时候不会太久了。如果你踏过那条红线，我可以告诉你，美国政府就可以给你们驱逐出去。
中共向海外渗透，在国际社会展示它的软实力，已经不是什么新鲜事了。不过，多年来一直苦苦上访，希望收回他们土地的福建农民们，一定没有意识到，他们所赖以生存的土地是怎样成为中共收买海外华人的筹码，而不明不白地失去的。新唐人记者曾铮纽约报道。Well, that was the case I covered 9 years ago. Now let me share you another very high-profile case. In 2011 and 2012, I covered another quite huge case. I won't play the reports I did here as they are in Chinese language and don't have English subtitles, so I only show you 2 pictures of me covering the news. The case was about John Liu, who is currently a member of the New York State Senate for the 11th District in Northeast Queens. Let's show a picture of him. Back in 2011 and 2012, he was the New York City Controller. So the case was 2 of his former associates used strong dollars to contribute to his campaign and got arrested. They were both convicted and sentenced later. What are straw dollars? You can understand them as fake or non-existing donors. Their names are used by other real donors to donate to the candidates, as there are many limitations of political donations, such as foreigners cannot donate and there is a cap of how much each donor can donate, etc. So these fake and non-existing donors are called straw donors. Let's show a picture of John Liu's associate, Oliver Pan. He was sentenced to 4 months in jail. Now let's show a picture of John Liu's campaign treasurer, Jia Jenny Ho. She was sentenced to 10 months in jail in 2013. On October 5, 2013, the Campaign Finance Board denied John Liu matching funds worth $3.53 million for his campaign. So what's the real story here? Many of us in the Chinese community knew that the CCP was behind all those, since it was illegal for Chinese authorities to donate to American candidates. A workaround was arranged. Hundreds of low-income Chinese Americans would be invited to lavish dinners and handed packets of money by Chinese government agents. This money then would be passed on to the candidate. The New York Times also spent many months investigating John Liu's case and found many of his donation cards were filled by the same person, and some of his donors didn't exist at all, or many donors were living in the same address, etc. So I had also translated that report into Chinese back in 2011. And you know what? Although there had been a lot of media exposure of John Liu's fundraising scandals, somehow he got away with it. Not only did he not face charges, but also won the state election in 2018, the state senate election in 2018, and is still currently in office. This reminds me of something my source told me. He said that the CCP has a very strong presence in New York, and the CCP claims that candidates must be supported by the Chinese consulate. Otherwise, the Chinese forces will not help them and will make trouble for them. So anyone who is ethnic Chinese must have the CCP's support. Otherwise, it is very hard to win. My source said to me, actually, recently a Taiwanese Chinese who was considering running in the upcoming congressional elections and who was not working with the CCP, received 3 bullets sent to his home. That was definitely a threat. My source also told me that the pro-CCP Chinese organizations in the US have now secured deep roots in American society. Last year, when the pandemic just started in China, these CCP forces in the US, as well as in other Western countries, slapped up all the world's epidemic prevention supplies and sent them back to China. That's why the CCP was able to threaten Western countries with masks and other medical supplies later. The CCP-backed or controlled figures and organizations are the real Trojan horses of the CCP and are extremely dangerous. Remember what I shared in my last show, the CCP's top strategics. Jin Canrong said in 2016 that the CCP's goal is to put the US under our jurisdiction, and one of the methods was to control the votes to change the politicians' attitude towards the CCP. So, if we connect all the dots together, the full picture is very clear. The CCP's long-term plan has been in action in the US for many, many years. People like me have been working very hard to expose the CCP's agenda and actions, but unfortunately, not enough people have realized it yet. How many more losses do we have to suffer until we wake up? Sometimes I do wonder. Okay, that's all for today's Inconvenient Truths. If you care for our future, for the future of our children and mankind, please do help me spread the message. I hope together we can stop the CCP from destroying the world. Thank you. See you next time.